High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I am so excited to not only be here today with my very dear friend, coach, and mentor, but to make this the first episode of my new podcast show. So the reason we're doing this show is I feel that everybody needs to operate at a higher level. And I have been from one level escalating in my life, in my journey, to where I'm at today, and I owe the majority of that to the man sitting right here. Marshall Sylver, who you probably know from his great stature and profile, is someone that has been an icon in the industry and been a true mentor and friend to me. And I thought it would be appropriate to start our first episode today with you and I talking about how you've changed my life, how you've changed, well, so many lives. I mean, I'm sure it's into the multi-thousands of people. Marshall, first of all, thank you so much for being here today with me. I appreciate it.
Brother, what an honor. Seriously, what a phenomenal honor on so many levels to be the first guest on this podcast. That's honor enough. To have watched you just step into your greatness, to do exactly what you're teaching people to do on your broadcast, and that is to play their game at a higher level, higher stakes, and more than that, the honor of just knowing you and being your friend and knowing, number one, everybody loves you. You have such great integrity, you've got such great energy, and I'm watching you unfold. And we were chatting right before the camera started rolling, and you were talking about, I feel as if I'm in my element. Yeah. Yes, that's it. And I often ask people, how would it be if you were living your life exactly the way that you wanted to live it, doing exactly what you wanted to do on a daily basis, and it was producing the results that you wanted to produce? So you get up, you do what you do, and you make all the money that you want to make, and you have all the relationship time that you want to have, and all the friend time you want to have, and all the play time that you want to have, and yet your life still works perfectly. And so few people find that. Yeah. So few people in the course of their lifetime get to the point where they're doing what they want to do 100% of the time and living the life that they want to live. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Grateful to you for having me on your show and being your first guest. I'm honored.
Well, you know, it's funny, you talk a lot about people's journey. And I'm a big believer that life is like a book. And you have chapters. Chapters begin, chapters end. High school is a chapter. A certain time of your life in your 20s is a chapter. And a lot of people ask me, where are you going? And I think a lot of it is if you look at someone's past, you'll see their future. And if you look at the people that have helped manicure them, grow them, cultivate them, you could probably see the trajectory of someone's future. Now, looking over here at your backyard that we get to see in Southern California, and knowing that I've been here several times and I've gotten to, break bread with you and your beautiful wife and your family, I look at this chapter of my life as the rocket fuel to the next chapter. What would you say for people that either they never close a chapter in their life or they just don't know how to get to the next one? Like, why do people not get to that next level?
I think they don't know what the next chapter is. I don't think they know what the next level is. I think that so many times people become complacent because they think it's as good as it gets. You're right. This is my backyard at my vacation home.
Right.
My main residence is a 17,000 square foot home in Las Vegas. And we sit on an acre and a half, 125,000 gallon pool, tennis court, putting green, skateboard park, and we fly back and forth in private jets. I live a life most people couldn't imagine. And as you know, my history is I grew up on a farm with no running water, no electricity, no phone. Often we had little, sometimes no food. Oliver Wendell Holmes said a mind once expanded will never contract to its original state. That once you accept things as being a certain way, you can't go back, you can't forget. And I believe that a wallet once expanded will never contract to its original state. You get used to waking up to this every single day and you want it.
Right.
You get used to flying on private jets and you want it every single day. I always kid with people. I say, fly with me once on the private jet, you'll like it. Fly with me twice, you'll like it a lot. Fly with me 3 times and it will ruin you in a really good way. And that's kind of what's happening for you. I know your history.
Right.
Obviously, you have been a student of mine and now a peer and now a friend, and you love to fly.
I do.
You just love to fly, and I love that you love to fly, and I can only imagine what it's got to feel like to be able to handle a piece of machinery, the size of a 777, and know that you are responsible for making this thing do what it does. That's got to be astounding. We were up in Seattle at an event. You were also speaking. We were both keynoting at the event. And Erica and I had a private jet, and you said, hey, can I hitch a ride? And I said, sure. And on the ride, you disclosed to me I'd never been on a private jet before.
Yeah.
And when you told me that, I thought, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what it's like to live our lives in a certain way. You have a life most people would dream of. You make strong six figures. You really don't put a whole lot of time in. At this point, it's not hard work. Right. You take off, and then the plane flies itself in due respect for the most part, and then you land. And most people would think like the pilot that's going by right now in this helicopter, that's our military taking care of us, and we're very grateful for our military. People that fly and do things like that, they usually do it because they love it. Right. And what people don't know is that you can find what you love and also be massively monetarily rewarded. Fortunately for me, early on in my life, at 7 years old, I discovered that I loved being on stage. Fortunately for me, we were poor, we were broke. And at 10 years old, somebody told me that they would pay me to do magic from the stage, which is what I loved doing. And my response is, are you kidding me? You'll pay me to do exactly what I love to do? And now, as you're discovering, communication equals wealth. Yeah. And the better we communicate internally, the 1,500 words per minute that are going through our brain, telling us who we are and who we aren't, what we can be, what we can do, what we can have, and the better we communicate with the outside world, with each other, the ability to inspire and influence each other will determine the quality of our lives. And for me, I open my mouth and money pours into my bank accounts. And that's what you're discovering, that you are a brilliant human being, you have massive amounts to give, and that what you give matters to other people. And I've watched it. I've watched my audiences, I've watched you work with my students, my customers, take their businesses to the next level, and you're a genius.
Thank you.
And I think what it is, and I just want to put this out here, we select professions for whatever reasons. You have that 45,000 foot view. Yeah. You look down on the planet every day, and your brain is wired to realize how tiny it really is. Right. Whereas somebody that never leaves their little town, like you were asking me about, they never leave their little village, their little town, their little city. They don't really travel much. They get a job that pays the bills. They don't really expand. They don't know what they don't know. You help people know what they don't know.
Do you think people just settle for what they're comfortable with, their level? You said a word earlier. You said, fortunately, you were poor. What did you mean by that?
Had I been wealthy, I might not have had to go to work full time at 10 years old. I might have, played baseball and done stuff and ran around the neighborhood. My dad bought me a car when I was 16 and, gave me an opportunity in the family business. Well, none of that existed. Right. I didn't have a dad. And my mom had 10 kids and we were poor. And so I started working full time at 10 years old. I look at my life and I don't have any regrets. I've been blessed. You mentioned my beautiful bride and my 3 kids, and again, look at the view here. It doesn't suck.
Doesn't suck.
And so I think that ankle weights are a good description for people's lives, that sometimes we don't realize that they're not permanent, that we can take them off. And when we take the ankle weights off, it feels like we've got wings. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've made over $500 million by opening my mouth and letting what I said and I spoke into the universe echo back to me. And I think that's the first challenge for most people getting to the next level of their lives, is they have to savor the wanting as much as the having. I want you to look at the view here at the beach house and say, gosh, that might be a nice place to wake up to every morning. That might be a nice place to watch the sunset every evening. And then the second thing I want everybody watching for sure to recognize is I'm an ordinary guy. As you know, we're friends. Yep. We've broken bread together. We hang out together. We played pool together on the purple pool table.
I did lose to him playing pool last time.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up. Now that you did, though.
Now that I brought it up.
I hope you brought cash with you for this trip.
Yes.
You know that I'm a human.
Yeah.
And so many times we see people that we might look up to, and they're living a lifestyle that we might not even have the courage to aspire to, and we say, gosh, look at them. And my response is, no, it's you. Look at you. And that you have greatness inside of you that you've not tapped into yet. You have ability that you've never touched. And frankly, you are one idea away from $1 million. And these days, I even say $1 billion. Right. Yet you've got to have the courage to execute. You got to throw noodles against the wall. You've got to fail forward fast. And you've got to be willing to crawl before you stand, and stand before you walk before you take that leap of faith and fly. And I think that so many people are afraid they're going to fall down. And I want to tell you, you're going to fall down. You're going to fall flat on your face time after time after time again until one day you don't. And then one day you wake up and you say, wow, how did I get here? You know, this is my beautiful wife. This is my beautiful car. And you say to yourself, you know, it's the byproduct of me repeatedly having faith. And faith equals follow through. And I think that's one of the basic strategies to playing at a higher level, is recognizing that it's okay to fall down. It's okay to get knocked down. It's okay to lose repeatedly, because ultimately the victory is there too.
Well, you know, I know from personally my own experience, as well as anyone else I've ever met that's successful, yourself included, I have never met one person that said they have never failed at something. And some of them are drastic. The bigger the fail, the bigger the lesson. Of course, it's not a lesson when you're doing it at the time.
It's life.
But that's life.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to people and they always tell me all the reasons they don't want to try something, it's normally the fear of failure. It's never the fear of success.
Yep.
They're fearing the failure of what could happen. And I was taught, it may have been you, I don't recall, but it's
of course it was.
I'm sure it was you. But it's a past emotional experience that they're bringing forward to a future expectation.
Yes.
Which is not even rational when you think about it.
Well, and I think it's more than that. I think it's also a need for other people's approval. You know, if I wager every dollar I have on a business and the business doesn't succeed and I lose it all, that might hurt me, yet when I'm secure in the knowledge that I can make all that money back again, might take a little bit of time, yet I'll make it back again and I'll do it again, then again, what does it matter? Unless what I'm concerned about is somebody else saying, oh, he failed. You know, he lost all his money. Yeah, I told you were going to do that. And when you lose the need for other people's approval, when other people's opinions just don't matter anymore, you say, okay, so what, now what? And I was married twice. Unlike you, I was married twice before I met my one true wife. And I'm glad that I was, much like I was glad that I was poor growing up. It let me recognize the distinction between poor and wealthy. I know what a bad relationship feels like, and I know what a perfect marriage is because I have one. And so many times people don't realize that everything exists because of its polar opposite. Light exists because of the darkness. Wealth exists because of poverty. Joy exists because of sadness. And so right now, you know, we're experiencing abundance, except we wouldn't even know this was abundance unless we'd been poor or seen broke.
Right.
There are people that play in different realms where, you know, they're billionaires, and if they only had 10 or 20 million dollars, they go, oh my God, I'm broke. How do I even exist? How do I get by? And, you know, I've been poor and I've been rich, and then I've been poor and I've been rich and I've been poor again, and then finally rich again. And I got to tell you, rich is better, except it's temporary. And being attached to being poor or being attached to being rich are sure ways to fail. And here's what I mean by that. You know, I when I was poor, always wanted to be rich. And when I got rich, I thought then I'd be happy. And then I got poor again and rich again, married the wrong person, got poor again, got rich again. And I'm not attached to either side. You know, when I'm poor, I eat top ramen a lot. And when I'm rich, I eat top ramen a lot because I like top ramen. And I certainly love my nice cars and my nice view and, you know, flying in private jets, yet I'm not going to let it identify me. And because I'm not desperate, I get it. So lose the desperation, savor the wanting as much as the having, and find a way to really enjoy this moment, whatever this moment is. Time with a great friend, a beautiful view, you know, out your back window or somebody else's back window. When you start just being grateful, the rich get richer. And I think that's the biggest challenge that most people have. They're just not grateful for what they already have.
Would you say someone who's rich or someone who's poor is just a state of mind?
100%.
It's just how you perceive that day. I mean, two people could wake up the same morning, see the sun One person says he's getting skin cancer. The other says this is a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It's a state of mind.
It's I think more than a state of mind. It's a state of the ability to sit in satori, to be in the present moment. I once cried because I had no shoes till I met a man who had no feet. You know, your head and my head, they don't grow hair like other people's heads.
By choice.
It just is what it is. We're shaved. I have 4 brothers, and they're all Elvis Presley heads of hair. I mean, big, beautiful Elvis Presley heads of hair, and I got all the brains. I got it all. I mean, I know that, and so, you know, if somebody had come to me when I was 5 years old and said, look, you can either have a head that grows Elvis Presley hair, or you can have all the brains. Which would you choose? If I was smart as a kid, I would just say, shave my head already.
Right.
Just shave it. Because ultimately, I'd rather be smart than anything. I'd rather be rich than right. I'd rather be happy than right. And so many times people don't realize what the alternative is. That the alternative to, you know, crying because you have no shoes is you don't have any need for shoes because you have no feet.
Right.
So yes, I would say it's a state of mind. I think about Steve Jobs and how Jobs worked at Apple until 30 days before he dropped dead of pancreatic cancer. Here's a guy who had been sick for years, probably without his vision and his mission would have died years earlier had he not had a need to live longer, and yet he lived longer. And you know, there's a photograph, a very famous photo of him 30 days before he passed, and he's nothing but bones.
Right.
He's wearing, you know, a long black tank top dress basically, and he's nothing but bones. And all I can say is my prayer is that I am used up by the time I die. My prayer is that every single day I am grateful. My prayer is that there wasn't a single day that went by that I didn't tell my children that I love them, as I do every day, multiple times a day, that you as my friend, that I don't want to miss a moment to hug you and to tell you how awesome you are and how grateful I am that you are in my life. And I think that so many times that people forget that. They don't savor the meal, that bite. They don't appreciate the friendship. They don't appreciate the time that they have together, and they get robbed of everything consistently.
How do you think people that want to be successful in business and they want to have touch the brass ring or gold ring, whatever you want to call it, how do they do that with that perseverance but still keep that, I hate to say balance, because I don't think balance is a proper term in my opinion. I think you have to be very focused and intentional, and you know, when you are on stage, you're probably focusing on being on stage and helping people, and then when you're at home, you're focused on being at home. You don't mix the two, right? So how do people do that to get them to that next level?
I think it's a trade-off. You know, I have peers, there's other speakers and trainers, and as you know, I'm also an entertainer. There's other entertainers that one magician comes to mind. He works 340 days a year. 340 days a year, he's on stage performing. This man's a billionaire, and yet he feels that desire, that need even, I believe, to be there. I have a speaking peer, same thing. He probably speaks 325 to 340 days a year. I don't want that.
Right.
Somebody could tell me, I'll give you $100 billion to do that for a year, and I'd say, no, my son is 10, my other son's 8, my daughter's 6. No, I don't want to take a year and miss that much of their lives.
Right.
I'd rather have balance. And so I say there's no right or wrong, there's consequence. And the consequence of our lives is what was the trade-off.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, because you really have to contemplate that and think about that really hard as what's important to you. And you know, it's sometimes something is going to be, I don't know if sacrifice is the right term, but something is going to have to be
chosen. Yeah, something's going to be chosen. So again, those two gentlemen that I was talking about, they're both not quite billionaires yet. Yeah, they're about to be billionaires. And so for me, money's never been a motivator for me. Don't get me wrong, I like lifestyle. I like my beach house, I like my palace in Vegas, I like private jet travel, I like buying whatever I want to buy whenever I want to buy it. Yet there's not ever been a part of me that said, I need to be a billionaire.
Right.
And yet when I came out of retirement, one of the reasons I came out of retirement is to hand my wife a $1 billion check on my 63rd birthday. So I turned 60 this year, so that means in May I turned 60. In 3 years, in 2025, I'll turn 63. And purely as a target for me, I want to hand her a $1 billion check. And then my secondary reason for wanting to hand her a $1 billion check is I want people like you and everybody that's watching this program right now, I want people that are watching this program to say, he said he would be a billionaire in 3 years, and since money is math, He didn't let anything going on in his head stop him.
Right.
He didn't let anything that the world would tell him, oh, that's not possible and that's not realistic. He said, no, I'm going to be a billionaire in 3 years. That's all it's going to take. And people said, okay, well, let's see you do it. And I said, let's get busy. First, you got to figure out, if I want to be a billionaire, what does that really mean? How do I sell a company for $1 billion? Well, interestingly, our business, we don't even have to earn $1 billion in a year to sell a company for $1 billion.
Right.
We need a company that can run without us. We can't be the missing piece that, in my instance, only has to make about $130, $140 million net in a year, and I can sell that business for $1 billion. Well, that's not that much.
Right.
It's certainly not $1 billion.
Right.
It's 130 now. Well, 130, okay, how much is that? Well, it's just about 10 million a month. That's not a lot. It may seem like a big number right now if I'm not making that much, except it's really not that much.
Yeah.
And then you start taking a look at two things that I know you teach inside of your trainings, scalability and saleability.
Correct.
And you say, okay, I want to make a cookie cutter, that this cookie cutter I can cut into the dough and it will make the dough turn into $1 million. You say, great, I just need to find enough space to cut 130 of those cookies out and I got a $1 billion business.
Right.
And I think that that's what most people don't recognize, is they're always looking for what don't they have. When I think the first element of success is figure out what you do have. Figure out what your resources are. And I'll tell you right now, your top 3 financial resources, number 1, time. It is the great equalizer. It's the thing that all of us have the same amount of, and the people that make more money than the people that don't, they utilize their time better. They consistently ask, what is the highest and best use of my time? They consistently put themselves in higher paying activities, and they let go of minimum wage activities. Your second resource is your leverage, money. How much access do you have to money? You can never borrow money when you need it. You can only borrow money when you don't need it.
Correct.
So get access to money right now. Get credit lines, get access to money right now so that when opportunity pops up, it's available to you. The third resource you have that you definitely have right now that we want to be a part of is your network.
Okay.
Who are the people you interact with? Everything that you want that you don't have right now, you're going to get from other people. And it's your job, your task to love people. And by loving people, what's going to happen is you're going to open up the doors to opportunity to a degree beyond anything you ever imagined. And I guarantee you, I promise you, that the abundance will be more than you ever thought you could have.
Let me ask you this. I would say, from my experience of knowing you, you've probably created more millionaires than probably anyone else. I mean, you've been doing this for 50 years almost.
40 years, yep.
40 years.
Damn, I look good though, huh?
You do look good. You do look good. What is the common trait or common thread that you see from the people that do it, right? It's not the hardest worker. It's not necessarily the smartest person. What is it, or is there? Is there
Yes.
something that you look and go, that person has it because of X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, there's 2 elements. The first is certainty. It's Thomas Edison inventing the electric light bulb. He's not looking at the electric light bulb saying, gosh, I sure hope I can invent this thing. He says, I know it's possible to invent this thing. I know it's possible to create a bulb that I can feed electricity into that can sustain a light for a period of time. And his initial target was 30 days.
Right.
He figured if he could create an electric light bulb that could sustain and burn and give light for 30 days, he would accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. So the first thing he had to do was figure out, how do I get the light bulb to light up? And it lit up for 2 seconds. Okay, got it. How do I get it to sustain light for 10 seconds? A minute, an hour, a day, a week, now a month. And so the first element of people that really succeed in all areas, and I don't care whether it's your marriage or your health or your finance, and by the way, money is the easiest part of your life. Once you figure out money, it's just math. First is certainty. They are absolutely certain of their outcome. The second piece, though, is they understand something that I muttered a few moments ago, and that is that communication equals wealth. And they take charge of 2 forms of communication. The first form has to do with certainty. It's internal communication. It's those 1,500 words per minute. They take charge of their thoughts and emotions. They don't give themselves the luxury of a negative thought.
Right.
When it comes in, they let it go. They say no. Somebody says, oh, that's never going to happen. They say, you're not a part of my world. They cut loose toxic relationships. Even if they're related to those people, they say, no, you can't be a part of my world if that's going to be the input you pour into me. The second thing, though, is that they really understand the power of influence. They understand, how do I sell? How do I speak to other people in such a way that it would inspire them to beg me for what I'm selling and have them believe it was their idea? When you master that skill of irresistible influence, getting other people to beg you for what you're selling and have them believe it was their idea, the world's your cornucopia. You can have anything you want. I mean, this is it. You can have anything you want. All you've got to do is understand how to influence others.
And I think that a lot of people, when they hear the word selling, as you know, they get kind of bunched up and a little nervous. But I remember hearing you a long time ago when I first heard you speak, and you talk about selling someone with the idea of getting off drugs.
Yes.
So for people to think selling is always a bad word, a bad connotation, but then if it benefits them or a family member in that kind of way, which you've had experience with before, now you're heroic.
Yep.
Because you sold someone off of a bad, being a criminal, drugs or whatever. How would you say, how do you get people to overcome that own self-doubt of realizing that it's not only okay, but it's a necessity if you have the skill set and you can help somebody better themselves?
It's the cornerstone. You hear me say all the time, somebody will say, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. And I'll say, yes, of course I am. It's good for me. It's good for you. It's good for the entire economy. Everybody wins. Of course I'm here to sell you something. It's what I do.
Right.
And you asked me, what is one of the major things that causes one person to be a success and one person not to be? When you believe in what you're selling, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it.
That makes sense to me. Well, Marshall, look, I don't want to take too much of your time.
And
the
sun
is
down.
going down. It's a beautiful night here in Southern California.
Hey, the sun kind of went down way faster than I wanted it to. So I know your podcast is going to be a massive success. Would you promise me something?
What's that?
That after you've done some episodes and it's the success that I know it's going to be, would you please ask me to come back on again?
You got it.
Awesome.
That's a deal. That's a deal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, this is the great Marshall Sylver, a mentor, a friend, just an amazing human. If you haven't had the chance to watch him in person, you got to watch him because this guy is phenomenal. He changed my life. I can tell you from firsthand experience that because of you, Marshall, my life is much different. And I just want to thank you for that because honestly, without you, I would not be here today. I would not have the life I have or the outlook on life because of what you've done. So I personally want to thank you. And I thought it was a great opportune time to have you on High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg, the first episode. And you got it. We'll come back next time when it's a little more sunny.
Awesome, brother.
We'll go from there. Love you, man. Thank you.
Too, brother. Thank
All
you.
right, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.